is pretty much, well, not confirmed by the UFC, but confirmed by Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev came out and said, no, that fight's not happening. He's got lots of work to do in the welterweight division. Outside of that, I mean, Michael Chandler's ranked number 13. There's Renato Moicano at 10. There's Dan Hooker at number 8. He wouldn't be a bad stylistic matchup for Conor McGregor, but I think it's going to be like an old school throwback and something big and something that's going to blow people away. Dustin Poirier would do that. I think Jorge Masvidal would do that. And certainly a third fight with Nate Diaz, that would definitely blow the roof off.
Keep going, move it, weave it.
You're under arrest. You're under arrest. Stop resisting.
But Conor McGregor is the perfect example. Why do you think he's such a big star? You think he's such a big star because he's funny? Yeah, that's part of it. You think he's such a big star because he speaks so well? Absolutely part of it. And you just keep going down the line of all these things that makes him a star. But number one, first and foremost, the reason he is a global superstar and people love this guy is because he's a real fighter. This guy, I'm the guy that makes the phone calls and hears people going, yeah, I'm not going to take that fight, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that. Never has Conor McGregor said, Lorenzo and I were standing in his living room. Kid just woke up, got out of bed, he's in his underwear. Okay? Doesn't even have time to process what's really going on. Looks us dead in the eye and says, I'm going to take a shower and get dressed and work out. Let me know after I'm done working out who I'm fighting. Doesn't care.
Right.
And that, people feel that, and people notice that, and people...
The whispers of a comeback didn't just grow, they detonated. Conor McGregor is no longer teasing shadows. He's buried in camp, grinding in silence for what insiders believe is a return on the rumored White House card, and the stakes feel unnervingly real. This time there's no carnival barking, no champagne chaos, no smoke to hide behind, just a former two-division king sharpening old weapons with cold intent. The laughter is gone. The spectacle is stripped away. What's left is calculation. What's left is hunger. The man who once bent divisions to his will is moving like someone who knows this is the last door that opens without knocking twice. Every session looks surgical, every clip carries a warning, every rumor hits heavier than the last punch he threw. If he walks onto a stage that historic, under lights that unforgiving, it won't be for sentiment or applause or faded glory. It will be a reclamation, a reckoning, a reminder carved in real time, because legends don't return to wave, they return to take something back. And if he steps into that spotlight again, it won't be about proving he can still fight. It will be about proving he never stopped being who they fear.
Last one, White House is what everybody's talking about. Big card on June 14th. There's going to be 100,000 people across the street.
I'm going to be in there.
Who's more likely to fight on that card, Jon Jones or Conor McGregor?
I'll say Conor McGregor. Listen,
Why?
man, if you're gonna have the biggest fight card of all time, you gotta have the biggest star the UFC has ever seen.
Yeah.
I say
When it comes to Conor McGregor, even a vanished tweet can send shockwaves through the fight world. And this one didn't just ripple, it rattled cages. The former champion fired off a brief but explosive message claiming he'd been offered a fight, accepted the opponent and the terms, and was only waiting on the contract. Then, just as quickly, he erased it, as if the truth slipped out too soon. That's when Michael Bisping stepped in, dissecting the moment with a veteran's instinct, suggesting it felt authentic, raw, maybe even accidental, like someone pulled the trigger on news that wasn't cleared for daylight. No hype campaign, no polished rollout, just a flash of information that wasn't meant to breathe yet. Bisping hinted it didn't read like fantasy or bluster, it read like reality leaking through the cracks. And in a sport built on calculated announcements and strategic timing, a mistake like that can mean only one thing: something real is moving behind the curtain. The deletion didn't calm the storm, it confirmed it. Screenshots spread, speculation ignited, and suddenly the silence around his return felt staged rather than uncertain. If Bisping is right, if that tweet was a slip instead of a stunt, then the comeback isn't theoretical anymore, it's imminent. Not months away, not someday, closer than anyone is prepared for.
McGregor, according to his recently deleted tweet, he's back, he's coming, he's on.
I'm coming!
What did he say? He said, I have been offered an opponent and I accept. He said, I've been offered an opponent and I accept, waiting on my contract. Now that tweet recently got deleted as well. One would assume, right, reading between the lines, could be wrong, that he's telling the truth. that he got the offer, they've agreed an opponent, and he was very excited, so he tweeted about something, then he was like, oh shit, I'm not supposed to say anything yet, or whatever, so he deleted it, okay? And obviously, it's a nice little PR move, it generates some interest for Conor McGregor, and the interest for Conor McGregor, he doesn't need to generate interest, let's be honest, okay? Everyone is still very...
Continuing his breakdown, Michael Bisping didn't hesitate, love him or despise him, he said. Conor McGregor remains the sport's ultimate gravitational force, the name that bends pay-per-view numbers and drags the entire industry with it. Then he pointed straight at the unfinished saga with Nate Diaz, 1 win apiece, 2 brutal collisions, and gates that shook the company to its core. The first encounter detonated expectations when Diaz stormed in and choked McGregor into stunned silence, flipping the script in a single chaotic sequence. The rematch was even more volatile, a tactical war fought on a razor's edge, momentum swinging wildly as McGregor adjusted, adapted, and clawed his way to a narrow decision, earned inch by bloody inch, never handed to him. Bisping's point was simple but loaded. Rivalries like that don't fade, they smolder. And if Diaz truly believes there's unfinished business, if he's serious about crashing this era and rewriting its hierarchy, then a trilogy isn't just nostalgia bait, it's combustible. One announcement, one press conference stare down, and the entire fight world would lock in. It wouldn't just headline a card, it would hijack the calendar, because when history is split down the middle and pride is still unpaid, the third act doesn't feel optional, it feels inevitable, and potentially massive beyond anything the UFC could quietly contain.
But Nate Diaz, that is correct. Stockton's own, king of the face slap, whatever you want to call him.
I don't give a I don't give a either. I don't give a either.
Nate Diaz, he was never far away from a bit of controversy, okay? He was talking recently, and he said that he's coming back. He's got unfinished business. He's going to take over, that this generation of fighters, they're all crap, and he's going to come in, take over. He's got unfinished work to do.
McGregor 3, I want to fight maybe Dustin Poirier if he's subject to the pussy, and then maybe Mike Perry. Let's see what happens in the future, though.
And someone said, what about the White House? He's like, oh yeah, that'd be dope too.
Yeah, the White House would be perfect.
You're the man.
Now, we've talked about this many times. Of course, Diaz and McGregor, they are one apiece. Nate Diaz shocked the world. He wasn't
Surprise, mother.
when he choked out Conor McGregor, and of course they fought again. Conor came back. It was another great performance. He dropped him with leg kicks. He dropped him with every left. One point because he was getting a little bit tired. But the fact of the matter is that those were 2 of the most watched fights in UFC history, much like all of Conor McGregor's fights, okay? He is by far and large the biggest.
Michael Bisping made it clear, if the rumored White House card becomes reality, he'd bet on Conor McGregor standing at its center, not as a side act, as the main event gravity. He even threw out a curveball, admitting he'd personally rather watch McGregor collide with Jorge Masvidal than see him finally settle business with Michael Chandler. But he didn't shut the door on a trilogy with Nate Diaz either, because Diaz isn't just a name on a roster. He's a movement, a cult figure with a following that feels almost mythic in MMA, the kind of presence that turns arenas electric before a single punch is thrown. And the plot thickens. Nick Diaz has been murmuring about a return of his own, claiming he feels sharper, lighter, reborn, far removed from the version that looked battered and faded in his last appearance against Robbie Lawler. Bisping's angle was simple but dangerous. If both Diaz brothers are healthy, focused, and hungry again, the matchmaking board explodes with possibility. Suddenly this isn't just one super fight, it's a cascade of them. One announcement could trigger another, one comeback could unlock 3, and what was already shaping up as a historic spectacle would mutate into something far bigger, a collision of eras stacked onto a single, unforgettable stage.
The White House is going down, and Conor McGregor, I think, will be fighting on it, and Jorge Masvidal would be a good matchup, okay? I'd rather watch that than Michael Chandler, respectfully, but Nate Diaz 3? Now, Nate Diaz is still a draw, right? People love Nate Diaz. He has got cult-like status in the mixed martial arts world, just like his brother. And his brother Nick, by the way, he said recently that he's going to come back as well. He said, maybe I was getting it confused, maybe he said this new generation of fighters. He's only 42 years old. He's cleaned up his act. He's been to rehab and stuff like that. Of course, last time we saw him, it wasn't a good look. He was a little bit overweight. I think it was Robbie Lawler that he fought. But he looks clean, he looks...
As the White House frenzy swelled, Daniel Cormier stepped into the storm and tackled the question hanging over everything: who actually shows up when the lights hit that historic stage? Forced to choose between Jon Jones and Conor McGregor, Cormier didn't stall, didn't hedge, he picked McGregor almost instantly. His reasoning cut through the noise. If the UFC truly intends to unleash the biggest spectacle it has ever attempted, a monumental card rumored for June 14th with a crowd expected to dwarf anything before it, you don't gamble on intrigue, you anchor anchor it to the most explosive draw the company has ever known. And in Cormier's view, that gravitational force is McGregor, not just a champion, not just a headline, the name that transforms an event into an occasion and an occasion into history. Jones may carry legacy, dominance, controversy, but McGregor carries mass appeal that spills beyond the sport itself. Cormier's take wasn't sentimental, it was strategic. When the stakes are that enormous, when the platform is that symbolic, you bet on the star who guarantees attention the second his name hits a poster. For fans, that shifts the tension from rumor to inevitability. This isn't idle chatter anymore, it feels like machinery turning behind closed doors. And if Cormier's instincts are right, the spectacle isn't hypothetical, it's loading.
White House is what everybody's talking about. Big card on June 14th. There's going to be 100,000 people across the street.
I'm going to be in there.
Who's more likely to fight on that card, John Jones or Conor McGregor?
I'll say Conor McGregor. Listen,
Why?
man, if you're gonna have the biggest fight card of all time, you gotta have the biggest star the UFC has ever seen.
Yeah.
I say.
On the flip side of the debate, when the spotlight turned to the most compelling matchup, Henry Cejudo didn't pause. He pointed straight at Tom Aspinall versus John Jones over a collision between Francis Ngannou and Jones. His reasoning carried weight beyond rankings or pay-per-view math. This wouldn't be just another title defense or super fight. It would unfold against the backdrop of the nation's 250th birthday, a charged, symbolic stage. England versus the United States, the surging present against a reigning all-time great. Cejudo framed it as more than matchmaking. He painted it as a generational reckoning, a moment where timelines crash into each other under historic lights. Aspinall represents the new wave, fast, dangerous, impatient. Jones embodies legacy, dominance stretched across eras, records etched in permanence. To Cejudo, that contrast is combustible. It's narrative gold with stakes that echo far beyond the octagon. He sees it as a defining clash where mythology meets momentum, where the question isn't just who wins, but which era survives. In his eyes, this isn't merely a main event to sell tickets or trend online, it's a fight that would stamp the sport at a crossroads, forcing it to choose between its immortal past and its accelerating future, all on a night built for symbolism and spectacle.
So Henry, here's the potentials. Alex Pereira, John Jones, White House. Or Dana says, all right, John Jones, Tom Aspinall, White House. Or Dana says, John Jones, Francis Ngannou, White House. Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler, White House. What's the biggest fight out of these four fights here?
I'd probably say Tom and Jones.
Over Francis and Jones?
Yes. Why? Because it's the 250th birthday of our country. England versus USA. The greatest of all time. The greatest of all time versus the present.
I like where you're at. I told you.
Moreover, the online fire starter known as MMA Guru was practically vibrating over the White House card, sketching out scenarios so volatile they feel ready to erupt before the opening bell can even sound. He's less fascinated by safe super fights and more captivated by collisions like Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev, a matchup dripping with tension, pride, and the kind of stylistic friction that promises sparks on contact. In his mind, these aren't just elite athletes trading techniques. They're rival forces on a crash course, each carrying momentum that refuses to yield. It's the edge that hooks him, the unspoken hostility, the feeling that one wrong glance at the press conference could detonate the whole atmosphere. Skill matters, of course, but danger matters more. The sense that control could slip at any second, that's what makes a crowd rise out of their seats without realizing it. Guru grins at the thought because he sees the volatility layered beneath the surface, the kind of fight where the narrative can flip in a heartbeat and the fallout lingers for months. For him, these are the pairings that don't just fill a card, they hijack it. They turn a historic venue into a pressure cooker and ensure that when the lights finally fade, the echoes of what happened inside the cage keep the entire MMA world arguing, replaying, and reliving every second long after the stage goes dark.
Funny.
Islam and Armin could be good.
Oh, yeah. But I don't think there'd be too much bad blood between them. I'd want to see like a Topuria Makhachev on them.
Oh,
that'd
be good too.
They'd have to be separated. They'd be pushing matches. They'd almost get into a scrap. You know what I mean? That's
Look at these massive ideas. Fucking, yeah. He's like, God damn it. Someone.
And then there's Islam Makhachev, stepping out of the shadows with a message that isn't subtle. He wants the White House spotlight, and he wants it now. For him, this isn't another title defense to pad or resume. It's a once-in-a-generation platform, a stage soaked in symbolism where legacies can be carved in a single night. He's sharpening his focus, tightening his circle, moving with the quiet intensity of someone who knows history rarely knocks twice. The hunger is visible, the patience is thinning, but hovering over it all is the unanswered question that keeps the tension alive. Who dares to meet him there? No contract signed, no name confirmed, just a void where an opponent should be, and that mystery is fueling the speculation machine into overdrive. Fans are fantasy booking every possible challenger, picturing styles colliding, imagining face-offs thick with hostility. Each rumor spreads like a spark in dry grass, and the longer the silence stretches, the louder the anticipation grows. Because when Makhachev finally walks into that octagon under those historic lights, it won't feel routine, it won't feel ordinary, it will feel deliberate, calculated, like a warning delivered in real time. And whoever stands across from him won't just be fighting for victory, they'll be stepping into a moment designed to redefine the balance of power.
If somebody wants, let's do it. I tell them I will be ready soon. If White House, of course I want to be in White House because there may be one and only we will make the fighting in White House. I want to be in history. Now I'm already make good money, which one I enough for my family, you know. And now I have everything before it's also not coming in my dream, you know. Now I just ready, you know. I training every day, still hungry, still fighting, still want to be champion.
However, John Anik offered a measured counterpoint to the White House frenzy. He's intrigued by the idea of Conor McGregor returning, but he's skeptical of certain rumored pairings, especially a clash with Michael Chandler. Flashy? Absolutely. Headline-grabbing? Without question. But in terms of true lightweight implications, Anik suggests it might lack real divisional gravity and could even drift into catchweight territory, diluting the stakes. For him, the sharper intrigue lies in potential wars with Nate Diaz or Mauricio Rufy, fights that wouldn't just sell, but would demand something raw and consequential from McGregor inside the cage. Meanwhile, Luke Thomas sees the bigger picture. He believes the White House UFC event has a legitimate path to becoming the most watched card in company history. The venue alone makes it historic, the matchups amplify the intrigue, but the true X-factor, he argues, is distribution. With CBS and Paramount Plus simulcasting the event, the traditional paywall disappears, unlocking a mainstream audience far beyond the hardened MMA base. Thomas calls it a rare alignment, timing, accessibility, spectacle converging at once. If the pieces fall into place, this won't just be another stacked card. It could erupt into something larger, a crossover moment that pulls casual viewers into the storm and leaves the sport etched into the broader cultural conversation for years to come.
Dana White said this week that he thinks the UFC White House event will be the most watched event. And on the surface of it, that seems like a plausible claim. I mean, just sort of, again, given the unusualness of it, could it be that case? Plus, if they're going to be simulcasting on linear television through CBS as well as Paramount Plus, so now you're not behind any kind of a paywall, that certainly could make an enormous difference. I think it is absolutely.
Luke Thomas lays it out plainly. Hardcore fight fans will show up regardless, but polling in casual viewers demands precision, smart matchmaking that makes every bout feel essential. You can't just pile the card with unknown names and hope for record-breaking numbers. Each fight must carry weight, tension, and stakes that the audience can feel pulse through the screen. Layer in the White House backdrop, the theatrical spectacle, and even uncontrollable elements like weather, and Thomas sees the ingredients for more than a typical UFC night. With the right combinations, he argues, this event has the capacity not only to succeed but to resonate, to dominate conversation, and to carve a mark in history. It's the careful balance of compelling, high-stakes matchups in an iconic, once-in-a-lifetime venue that could transform this from just another fight card into a cultural event, an occasion that fans, casual or hardcore, remember, debate, and replay for years to come. The tension, the unpredictability, and the symbolism all converge, creating an aura that could make the White House card feel less like a show and more like a statement, a moment where UFC history isn't just observed, it's lived in real time.
The table. However, I will just come down to a couple of factors. Number one, for fight fans, I mean, fight fans aren't going to skip it. Fight fans won't even skip, the average, or the hardcore fight fans, I should say, won't even skip, an event at the Apex. But to get the casual fan, I do think that some level of matchmaking will matter here, some level of it, right? I mean, they couldn't just put nobody's on that card and then have it there and it would be the biggest event in UFC history. I don't think that's quite right. However, with the right kind of matchmaking and, good luck with the weather and all that kind of stuff. I think it could.
So, the word is official. Conor McGregor is locked in for the White House card, and the tension is already electric. The question burning through every fan's mind: who will actually step into the cage with him? Rumors are spinning, names are flying, and while Michael Chandler grabs headlines for spectacle alone, the hardcore crowd craves a clash that truly pressures McGregor fighters like Nate Diaz or Mauricio Ruffy, whose styles could turn the octagon into a battlefield. Could the UFC throw a curveball instead? A shocking, high-stakes pairing that nobody predicts, but everyone will feel the impact of. The speculation is as intense as any fight itself, feeding endless debate and fevered anticipation. One thing is certain: when the bell finally rings, the lights will hit, and the cage doors close. The octagon is about to explode with energy. Every punch, every feint, every moment will be magnified by the weight of expectation. Fans are already circling their predictions, imagining scenarios, and staking their guesses on who can survive or dominate the Notorious. The countdown has begun, and the suspense isn't just in the air, it's alive, crackling, and impossible to ignore. Drop your predictions in the comments and stake your claim, because when McGregor steps in, history won't just be made, it will be witnessed.